Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Sarah, and first of all, I want to thank you so much for being part of this amazing community. When I started this about 30 days ago or so, I had no idea what a wonderful journey it would become and the level of connection that I would feel with each and every one of you. Starting today, every Friday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be going live in this group for the next 2 weeks. You get me. And then after that, we have actually lined up a wonderful list of volunteer speakers right from our own community that have offered to share their wisdom and insights with you in regards to mindfulness and meditation and health and wellness, any nutrition or health related topics we'll be covering each Friday at this time. The lives will be somewhere between like 20 minutes or so, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, depending on the topic and stuff. And today's topic is something that actually has been coming up a lot in the group, which is how to create a mindfulness practice that is right for you. Okay, and I'm gonna go through 5 different steps as of what it is that you're looking for, and some techniques and some different insights and guidance that might be able to kind of just guide you in the right direction. Hi Colleen, thanks for joining live. Happy you're here. Okay, so the first step that I want to talk about is, okay, why is it that sometimes it's a little difficult to meditate? And why is it that sometimes we want to create a mindfulness practice and we have the best intentions, but it doesn't always stick? We try for a few days, maybe a few weeks, if we're lucky, a few months, and then it just kind of fizzles out. And the answer to that is actually quite simple. We avoid our mindfulness practice because when we sit to meditate, we have to face our emotions. We have to face the stuff that the mind is so busy trying to run away from. So maybe we experience some fear or some sadness or some resentment or some stress and anger or frustration. And when you sit to meditate and you stop doing and you start to just be present, you have to feel. And what you feel might not necessarily be pleasant. It might not necessarily be pleasant. So when we're trying to learn to be present, the first task is sitting still with what is, knowing, expecting it. Well, maybe expecting is not the right word, because I don't necessarily want you to say, oh, I'm going to meditate, and when I meditate, I'm going to expect my negative emotions. Let's just say, do not expect them. So when you sit to meditate, if there is anything that is uncomfortable, any emotions that are uncomfortable, just be open to feeling them, and that alone will kind of get rid of some of that resistance. So if you know what the problem is, if you know why you might be resisting, then you could actually override that and say, yes, I understand that I don't want to feel right now, but I committed to myself that this is what I want to do, so I'm going to sit and I'm going to be willing and open to see what's there and feel what's there. And you will be surprised, it is really never as bad as you think it is. It's funny, humans spend a lot of time running away from nothing. When they actually finally face these things that they were so scared to see and feel, I promise it is never as ugly as you thought it was. And even if it is dark and heavy, the presence itself is what allows it to come up for healing. And unfortunately, there's no other way. So unless you're willing to sit with it and be present with it, then it's going to be, you're gonna unconsciously run away from it. So that would be the first step. Understand why it's a little bit difficult and understand that you should expect to maybe experience some discomfort, some negative emotions as you practice. And if you understand that, then that right there gets rid of some of the resistance, because I call this conscious resistance. It's like, okay, you are resisting, but you're conscious that you're resisting, and therefore you can override it. If you don't know that this is what's gonna happen, then you're just running away. You don't even know why. If you're aware that you're running away and you don't want to sit, and why you don't want to sit, then you can override that with your free will and your intention. So that would be the first thing, the emotions. The second thing is, how does the mind work? Okay, and I just like a brief overview as of what the functions of the mind are. First, the mind helps you remember. You need to know where you live and what your name is and your past in order to function in this world. Then the mind helps you to imagine. It helps you to plan. It helps you to envision. It helps you to just create and have like a future in mind, literally. That's what you want to experience. The mind also helps us to understand. So even like this conversation that we're having right now, your mind is taking the words in the English language and it has a concept as of what I'm trying to say, and then it can actually understand what I'm saying. And the other one, which I call dysfunction of the mind, is to misunderstand. A lot of the times, what we perceive is not really what is, because our mind is clouded by preconceived notions and preconceived expectations from prior experiences in this lifetime, in another, sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious. So the mind remembers, it imagines, it understands, and sometimes it misunderstands. And then the fifth function is actually sleep, where the mind is completely quiet. So first you understand this is the nature of the mind. It has these functions to do, and they're very important functions, and you need them in order to function in this human life. So for you to kind of just sit and expect your mind to be quiet and then get frustrated because it doesn't, well, the mind's just doing what the mind is doing. Okay, so what if you were to just take a step back behind the mind a little bit and observe these patterns? And when you see your mind running away at 1,000 miles an hour, catch it and say, okay, am I thinking of the past? Am I thinking of the future? Am I maybe trying to understand and process some of the events of the day? Or, things like that. So first you have to understand how the mind works. It's the nature of the mind to wonder, to think, to process, to imagine, to remember. So stop trying to make it do something that it's not, it's its nature to do what it does. So when you meditate, what I actually invite my students to do is to first observe. Now, that doesn't mean that you sit there and you just let the mind go wherever it wants to go. Okay? What I'm saying is, see the mind and say, okay, yes, mind, I understand that you have to think and you have to imagine and you have to remember and all of these things, but for the next 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you've allocated, the mind needs to focus on the breath, and then you become the master of your mind. And that's really what meditation and mindfulness training is all about, is becoming conscious of your thoughts and what the mind does, and then training the mind to listen to you. Who's you? You are the consciousness, the spirit, the witness that sees the mind. The minute that you catch yourself thinking in meditation, the minute that you see your mind running away, you've actually already accomplished your goal. You're present enough to notice that you're not present. And from that seat of presence, then you can call the mind back and say, okay, inhale, exhale. Or whatever method you're choosing, which I'm going to get to in a moment. Whatever method you're choosing to meditate. So understand why the emotions are there and why might you have aversion to feeling. Understand how the mind works so that you can then, with love and compassion, like training a puppy, bring the mind to what it is supposed to be doing. So Colleen's asking, is it best to recognize the thought and let it flow through? Yes, you can let it flow through as long as you don't get attached to it. So there's a difference between seeing the thought and letting it go, and seeing the thought and getting caught up into the stream of consciousness and following that thought. Does that make sense? Like, there's two things. You have to see the thought, you recognize that you're thinking, and you don't get attached to it. You can even label it if it helps: past, present, or understanding. It's gonna fall in one of those three categories. You acknowledge the thought, and then you let it go. You let it flow through. You don't get attached. Sometimes when people say recognize the thoughts, they might actually want to follow the thoughts. And listen, there's a power to the ability to concentrate and follow a thought through, and it might give you some very helpful insights. But when you're meditating, you actually have to train the mind. And even there might be a thought that comes up and it's a really good one and you would really like to just grasp it and go with it. And I say, can you discipline your mind and trust? So you see, Colleen, it comes to a matter of trust. Can you trust that that thought that came up will be available at a later time? And so you don't have to grasp it, you don't have to analyze it, you don't have to attach yourself to it. You could actually let it flow through from a place of trust and understanding that if it came up to your awareness here and now, it will be available for you to remember at the proper time. Okay, when you've decided and allocated time to think and actually focus and analyze this thought. But for now, the meditation practice is a practice of training the mind to listen to the witness, to listen to the consciousness. And if your chosen practice is to meditate on the breath, and the mind is focused on the breath, and then all of a sudden this thought comes, can you just go like a samurai and say, later, inhale, exhale, and come back to your breath. That's what makes you a master. That's what mastery means. It means that you can see yourself thinking and you can choose the thoughts. Because when you can do that for 10 or 15, 20 minutes in your daily mindfulness practice, then you're able to identify those thoughts as you go through the day, as you have conversations with other people, etc., etc. The other thing that comes up is, okay, well, what is the right practice for me? And I'll go through this rather quickly because there's really no one single answer. But there's a couple of different methods. And the simple answer is this: it needs to feel right for you. It needs to be enjoyable. Like, you have to look forward to this. If this is a chore, it isn't right for you. You need to find something else. If you're forcing yourself to sit in meditation, you need to stop meditating. And you need to breathe and stretch and do something else other than sit and suffer. Because sitting and suffering is not a mindfulness practice. So there's, I know that there's Tai Chi and Qigong and different styles of meditation. I like the styles of meditation that either just let you observe or help you focus on the breath. I think that those are more practical, more useful. So literally, as I breathe in, I know that I am breathing in. As I breathe out, I know that I am breathing out. Breathe in and breathe out. You set a timer. Whenever the mind runs away, come back, breathe in, breathe out. I find that to be very practical because it's something that you have available all the time. Others include counting. Inhale 1, exhale 2, inhale 3, exhale 4, inhale 5, exhale 6, or you can count inhale, exhale 1, inhale, exhale 2, inhale, exhale 3. These techniques just give the mind a point of focus, because again, the goal is to just keep the mind aware of what it's doing. And having an anchor such as the breath or counting is what keeps the mind. The mind likes success. The mind likes to be busy. Why? Because it gets its sense of identity from being busy. It wants to feel like it accomplished something. And so if counting is what we give the mind, if focusing on the breath is what we give the mind, then maybe that is the right practice for you. But then there's also, if sitting and meditating like this is not something that comes naturally and maybe you're not ready, I would say explore movement practices. There's different styles of yoga, from yin yoga, which is very passive and you hold the poses for a long time, to vini yoga, where you do breath and movement and you move, inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down, inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down. That mindful movement and breath could actually be super, super helpful for someone who just has a hard time sitting still. It will allow you to really connect your mind to your body for real, and the movement itself is also shifting energy from your energy system and releasing stress and moving energy around, which is helpful because a lot of the times what creates these streams of thought is that energy. Okay, so understand how the mind works, understand how your emotions work and what you should expect. Find the practice that is right for you, that is systematic and enjoyable. And that means that you have to find one method and stick with it. You have to find one teacher that resonates with you and stick with it. It doesn't have to be me. It has to be someone that actually resonates with you and that it's going to be able to give you the right practice for you. I have been practicing for 20 years, teaching for 10. I have like 5 different certifications and all sorts of different tools in my toolbox, and I never know exactly what I'm going to give a student until I start working with them. And even what I give them on any given day or at any point in their life, depending on what's going on with them, the practice might change depending on what they need, not just as like their constitution and their tendencies and their lifestyle and their literally like their education and the way that they think and their ancestral programming. All of that I take into account when creating a practice for a student. And then even within that, every now and then they'll show up to class and I'll have to throw my plan out the window and come up with something completely different because that's what they need that day. So you have to find a practice that is right for you and a teacher that could actually give you guidance. If you are not working with a teacher, then you have to become your own teacher, and you have to be really honest and neutral with yourself and really see if it's helping. And whatever method that you choose, educate yourself as much as you can on it and try and make it systematic, try and make it consistent, try and like really dedicate yourself to it. So that would be the third thing, which is the kind of practice that is right for you. And then the fourth thing would be to commit. You know, if we were making a commitment to our spirit, to the part of ourselves that gives us life, to this divine sacred energy within us, would you compromise? Would you skip your practice? Would you, when you think about it, that's a little bit disrespectful, right? Like, it's funny because we make so many commitments to so many people, and we honor those commitments at work, we honor those commitments to our children, to our partners, to our family, to our friends, and yet one daily appointment with you, sometimes that can be just skipped. Why is that negotiable? When you think about it, that is the most precious commitment that you could ever make to anyone. So, and I know this sounds a little harsh, but if you're not making that commitment to yourself and honoring that commitment, that actually creates a shakiness in your energy system. You're not working with integrity towards yourself. You're not respecting your spirit and your true self. And you know, I know like that's not pleasant to hear. Like that, man, really, that's what it comes down to. There comes shame with that. There comes, maybe you're listening to this and you're resisting and you're like, no, that's not, I don't want to, no, I love myself. Well, if you did, this would be non-negotiable. Like, you are not doing anybody a favor by doing your practices other than yourself. So can you love yourself enough? And now, of course, the day that you're not feeling well and the day that you're on vacation and the family is going around like crazy and you don't have a space, you have to love yourself enough to not do it that day. Okay, so there has to be a balance. You can't make it so rigid that then it's punishment. Like, your practices shouldn't be punishment either. Again, they should be enjoyable and systematic. So they certainly shouldn't be punishment. But a lot of the times I find, especially with us type A personalities, if I say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, I feel bad. And that doesn't help your practice either, because now you're creating a negative imprint attached to your practice. And so be kind to yourself, but also be firm with yourself. Make that commitment from a place of love and respect for yourself, not because you have to, not because it's the right thing to do, not because you want to even. You might want to, but that's not where you do it from. You do it from a place of unconditional love and compassion to yourself, and respect for your spirit, and integrity for your intention and promise that you made to yourself. You see how that's a little bit of a different energy? It's not that I'm being all, rigid and saying, no, you got to do it, otherwise you're a bad person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, can you actually love yourself so much that this is non-negotiable? Can you love yourself and respect your spirit and your commitment and that light in your heart so much that doing your daily practice is non-negotiable? Someone, I think it was you, Colleen, who asked me the other day, and you said, I've heard do it 5 times a week or something. And I said, no. I want you to do it 7 times a week, because the mind is so crafty and tricky, and it finds loopholes. And if you give it a loophole, it will take it. This is what the mind does. It's very crafty. Remember, it doesn't want to sit with its emotions. It doesn't want to face its problems. And so if you give it one tiny little bit of a loophole and say, I'm going to meditate 5 days, and then the other 2, it's the weekend, I'm not going to meditate, then it will say on Wednesday, well, how about we skip today and then I'll meditate on Saturday. But then Saturday will come around, and guess what? It's the weekend, and the mind thinks that the weekend's supposed to be off, and so then we just do it. And so now instead of 5, you ended up with 4, and the next thing you're down to 3. And then when it's not a habit, now you're not doing it at all, because it's so inconsistent that you can't actually get into that rhythm and momentum to sustain the practice. And so that would be my answer to that. It might seem a little bit tough. So what I would say is start with 5 minutes, start with 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and work your way up. But do try to make it as consistent as possible, and try to do it on an everyday basis. So the practice has to be right for you, and you have to make a commitment to yourself to do it. Okay? And then the 5th piece of the puzzle here is that you need a teacher, a practice, and a community. Those are the 3 things that you need to really sustain a mindfulness practice. It could be a video teacher, it could be something you're learning from a book. Ideally, it needs to be a human being that you find, but if you can't find a human being to guide you, then do the best you can to learn as much as you can from all of these different resources that we now have easy access to. So you need someone who has walked the path ahead of you and can give you systematic direction as of what kind of shape the practice needs to be taking. You need practice itself. It could be anything. If you're too stressed to sit down, and sitting down in meditation is not comfortable, then you need a movement practice to move pent up energy out of the system. And this reminds me, on the free library that we have access to, and on the announcement somewhere on this Facebook group, there's a link to the free library with lots of resources. There's a 7-minute video on how to properly sit for meditation. That is key and paramount to your success. If you're not sitting the right way, then chances are you won't be able to keep your mind still, because our bodies are like a circuit board. And so the more aligned you can get your body and your spine, the better chance you have. A lot of the times, if you have tight hips or tight lower back, your best bet is to sit on a chair. So look for that video, put a comment below if you can't find it, and I'll try and put the link later so that you can find it, because it has to be comfortable. So you need a teacher that can systematically teach you things like this, like just literally how to sit. You need a practice that's right for you, whether it's movement based or just sitting and meditating with your breath, whether it's counting or mantras or an external point of focus, different things that you could use. Your teacher should be able to give you guidance exactly as of what that is for you, or you can just listen to your own inner guide and teacher and figure out the one that works for you. But once you pick one, stick with it, because the mind is very crafty. It likes to do this today and then something else tomorrow, and then this way it keeps itself busy and distracted with something new, and then every time that it gets difficult and uncomfortable, it just runs away. So stick with one system. And the last but not least is try and find a community that supports you. When you work with other women or other students who are experiencing the same obstacles that you're experiencing, then you don't feel alone and you can relate, and there is a power in the collective consciousness, and that's very, very helpful. Nowadays we have the internet to kind of help us stay connected, but if not, definitely meditating in a group can be very powerful. If you have, like, in your church or somewhere in your community where you can get together with others that kind of hold you accountable and are also trying to learn just like you are, that can be super, super powerful. So this actually became a pretty long chat, a whole 25 minutes so far, and I have to run because I have a student interview in 2 minutes and I just got a notification that she's already logged in, so I'm gonna have to run. If you have any questions about anything that I just said, please go ahead and put them in the comments and I'll try to answer later when I log back in. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sarah. I am a traditional Usui Reiki master teacher, a holistic life coach, and a yoga teacher. I have a 90-day awakening and empowerment program that I run to help you with all of this. You could do it in a group in a very affordable way, and you can do it one-on-one if you're ready to dive a little bit deeper with me. So feel free to check that out. All the links are above on the announcement page. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. Namaste.